Oh boy, I sure do love One Piece. I love watching these goofballs getting into wacky adventures and getting along together and... Hey, hold on, wait. Why am I crying? What's going on? Why am I having feelings? Who put feelings in my silly, goofy pirate show? Oda! In some of my past videos, I have alluded to having strong feelings about one particular saga of One Piece. I have a lot to say about Water 7. I'm gonna try and keep a lid on it. Robin's story, which was so impactful to me that I had to take essentially a sabbatical from watching the show, and it calls into light so much about his character like previously that we've seen in the show, in particular in Water 7. But I can't help but be reminded of the last time that Robin and Chopper specifically went to a place full of books, which was at the start of Water 7. Nice to actually meet Vegapunk after he gets name dropped all the way back in Water 7, but the rest of the Water 7 saga is more than enough to make up for what I don't like about Long Ring Long Land. I have many more videos planned about One Piece that I want to make, including a big video essay on the Water 7 saga, but I'm gonna try and keep a lid on it. And matey, you guessed it, today's the day the lid comes off. Water 7. Man, Water 7 broke me. If Arlong Park was the arc that hooked me, then Water 7 is the arc that sliced me, gutted me, and sold me at the fish market for a discounted price. So before this metaphor gets any more out of hand, let's just get into it. Also, just to get the housekeeping out of the way, when I say Water 7, I am referring to the entire Water 7 saga, or primarily the Water 7 Enies Lobby and Post-Enies Lobby arcs. Sorry Foxy, this just ain't about you. To begin with, let me recount how I was feeling about the show before we got into this magnificent watery wonderland. We had just come off the back of Skypiea, which I certainly didn't dislike as much as some people do, but it did have its slower moments. Immediately to be followed by Long Ring Long Land, which was almost nothing but slow moments, thanks to a certain split-headed someone and their devil fruit power. There was also the G8 filler arc, but that was actually really good. But the point is, after Alabasta, nothing in Jaya or Skypiea, or certainly in Long Ring Long Land, really felt like it was quite living up to the bar set by that adventure. At this point in my watching journey, Alabasta remained peak. In addition, going into Water 7, I truly had no idea what to expect. All I knew going in was that we were going to get a patch job on the Merry and pick up a new crewmate to be the official shipwright of the Straw Hat crew. That's it. In and out, 20-minute adventure. My god. How little I knew how changed I was going to be coming out of this. It's not unusual for the Straw Hats to set foot on an island and very quickly have things start to go wrong for them. But the amount of things that go wrong in such quick succession here, my goodness. Conflict with the Frankie family, conflict with Iceberg, conflict with the Merry, conflict with Usopp, Robin's getting, what, sleeper agent activated? What? And no, really, what is the deal with this frog? Feels like we haven't been here 5 minutes and there's already just so much that needs to be resolved. To pass it down, I'm going to be focusing mainly on Usopp and Robin in this video, because those two really are at the center of this saga. Which is saying something, considering this is the same saga in which the main character of the series reveals his power-up system for the first time. But I think that's just tantamount to how stacked Water 7 is with great stuff. Even in a video specifically dedicated to it, I still don't think I'm going to be able to talk about everything and do it enough justice. But nonetheless, I am going to be talking a hell of a lot about it. In the OP for this arc, something strange caught my eye. Luffy and Usopp fighting. Yes, unfortunately, the OPs did spoil a few things for me, but c'est la vie. But up until now, Luffy and Usopp have had such a wholesome dynamic with each other. Being 2/3 of the goofball trio, getting overly excited and dancing together and talking about going to Elbaf someday. Usopp is even in the exclusive club of Straw Hats who Luffy has allowed to wear his cherished straw hat, for the very understandable reason that it wouldn't fit over Luffy's afro. So of all of the Straw Hats, it was very surprising to catch a glimpse of these two fighting each other, and appearing to be fighting seriously no less. Although what they are fighting about becomes all too apparent soon enough after we are introduced to the Galley La Company. Kaku does his recce on the ship and reveals that in his professional opinion, the Going Merry is f***ed. Which isn't that surprising given all that she's been through, getting blasted up the knock-up stream, getting a mast torn down by Shura, being set on fire. I mean, literally the last thing she did was fall out of the sky. She has been through the proverbial ringer. But it is still very alarming to hear the most professional shipwrights in the world assess that the Merry is so damaged that she will sink if she even sets sail again, that she has not even one voyage left in her. That this is indeed the end of the road for our beloved Straw Hat ship. Just as a side note, I absolutely love this moment where Zoro's sleepy ass sees Kako and is like, oh, never mind, that's just Usopp. That's good stuff. So of course this sets up the conflict of not just needing a new shipwright, but needing a whole new ship entirely. This is of course the spark that leads to Luffy versus Usopp, and this conflict is just devastating to watch unfold. Just yesterday these goofballs were laughing and joking and dancing around with each other, and now suddenly there is a rift in their friendship that seems as irreparable as the Merry itself, or indeed as irreparable as the hole in my heart after watching all of this go down. My reaction to all of this was pretty much exactly what Nami's reaction was. Like, I hate this. Because this isn't a Zoro versus Luffy in Whiskey Peak situation where it's a somewhat comical misunderstanding and it's just a bit of fun to have two characters fight and see how they compare against each other. No, no, no. This Luffy and Usopp fight is genuinely hard to watch. And part of what makes it such a great fight is because we do get to see both sides of it. We get to see Luffy struggle and deliberate and come to terms with the fact that they do in fact need a new ship. And look, it is the right decision. What Luffy gets so incredibly wrong, however, is how he chooses to break that news to Usopp. With a cheery smile on its face, it's already been decided, so let's move on and not even talk about it. Even displaying magazines of all these shiny new ships right before Usopp's eyes. Luffy knows how much the Merry means to Usopp, and I truly don't know what he was thinking here. If he thought breezing past it like this was going to avoid a direct conflict, but if so, man did that backfire. Usopp gets angry at Luffy, and Luffy gets angry in turn. After all, Luffy has already struggled with this decision. Plus, he's the kind of character who, once he's decided he's going to do something, he's going to do it. And again, the actual decision here is the right one. The Merry is no longer capable of being a functional ship. So getting pushback from one of his best friends on this has to hurt and be frustrating for him. But the lack of tact in handling this situation really does just go to show Luffy still has a learning curve to go on as a captain. Because look at this from Usopp's perspective. During all of Luffy's struggle and deliberation and denial about the state of the Merry, Usopp was passed out. He was unconscious. He didn't see any of that. He didn't see the Monster Trio and Chopper go to Frankie's house and destroy it just because they beat him up. The last things that happened to Usopp were this. He was left in charge of the money from Sky Island and the Frankie family stole it from him. He messed up. He tried to get the money back and the Frankie family beat him up. He messed up. He went on his own to the Frankie house to once more try and get the money back and prove that he's not worthless, and again, they beat him up. Not only that, but we find out that Frankie has already taken the money to go shopping. It can't be taken back at this point. He messed up. From Usopp's perspective, the last things he did were fail his crew over and over and over again, on top of already knowing that he is physically the weakest among them. And what does he wake up to? Luffy, his captain, his best friend, talking gleefully about replacing the Merry. The Merry that is the ship they have because of the adventure where they met him. The ship they have that is his connection to his home, to Kaya. The ship that the crew have shown wanton disregard for in some moments, forcing Usopp into the role of de facto shipwright, even though he has neither the knowledge nor the skill to adequately fulfill that role. Usopp loves and cares for this ship to which so much of his character is tied to the point that he's projecting his own self-worth onto it. Because remember, the last thing Usopp did from his perspective was fail his crew. And he wakes up to Luffy talking about replacing the Merry? No wonder he says this. Because in Usopp's head, if the Merry can be quote-unquote abandoned, then so can he. Yes, Usopp is stubborn and bullheaded and deeply in denial about the Merry situation. But he's clearly in a dark place here, which is especially saying something considering this is Usopp. He's always in a dark place. And all I can say is thank God Sanji was there to at least try and defuse the situation. One Piece is no stranger to blending serious with silly. In fact, we've just come right off the back of one of the silliest arcs One Piece has ever had. But here with Usopp and Luffy, Luffy, the conflict is treated with the gravity and weight that it warrants. From the moment Usopp wakes up to the climax of his battle with Luffy, there are no jokes, there are no goofs or gags about this. There is nothing but the fracturing of a friendship that we as viewers have come to know and love. This is how One Piece breaks your heart. This is how One Piece broke me. Who put feelings in my silly, goofy pirate show? And that's just the first half! What do you mean that was just the starter before the main course? What do you mean the main course is still to come? Just quickly before we move on, I want to shout out another thing that makes this fight so great, which is how well it demonstrates Usopp's tactical capabilities. Having the prep time, knowing his opponent, using the dials from Skypiea with incredible efficiency. It really shows where his strengths as a fighter lie, which is ironic considering this entire situation is springing from him doubting his own self-worth. No, he didn't beat Luffy here, even he knew he wouldn't, but he did put up one hell of a fight. Emotions aside, it's just really cool to see, even if it did lead to me crying out my own personal Agua Laguna right alongside Merry. And the tears wouldn't stop there, because now it's time to talk about Robin. Oh boy, Robin. Going into this, I still didn't really know what to make of Robin after being an enemy in Alabasta, just kind of vibing in Skypiea. But after Aokiji's warning about her, it was clear that there is something more to her than met the eye. A part of my mind was still suspicious that she had some kind of secret agenda, although those fears were alleviated by just how, kind and nice she's being to Chopper in this scene. And then this happened.
CP9 です。
What was CP9? All of a sudden, Robin's demeanor changes entirely. She says that she's gonna leave the Straw Hats and never come back. Next thing we know, the Straw Hats are getting blamed for an assassination attempt on Iceberg that they had nothing to do with, or did they? Because, as it turns out, Robin was one of the assailants. Once more, I am left spinning in circles, wondering, what is going on? Just while I'm at this bit, I do want to say that the CP9 reveal is one of the best betrayal reveals that I have seen in any media. I will say that I was sus of Khalifa, but I truly wasn't expecting any of these other faces to be underneath those masks. And it really does feel like a betrayal. I mean, Lucci and Kaku were even contenders to be the Straw Hats' new shipwright. And Oda just twists that knife a bit further here, dangling that thread of hope that maybe, well, if these guys weren't real shipwrights, then maybe they were wrong about the Merry and we can still sail with her. Only to snatch it away by them saying, look, no, although we were doing a deception here, everything we said about the Merry is still true. It's, But no, really, top 10 anime betrayals for real, actually. So why is Robin doing this? We are left to wonder, as well as why Lucci decided to practice ventriloquism with a pigeon while he was undercover. No, seriously, why did he do this? And over the course of Enies Lobby, we find out, oh boy do we find out, and everything about Robin's behaviour suddenly starts to make a lot more sense. Though Robin claims repeatedly that she wants to die, it seems to me more accurate to say she doesn't feel like she deserves to live. She doesn't feel like her life is worth anything. Robin lost everything. Everything and everyone she had ever loved, ever even known, all gone up in flames in a military barrage like no other. Her friends, her family, her home, gone. Herself, the sole survivor. This child went through hell. Not only that, but the Navy put the blame on her for this incident, calling her a demon child, putting an insanely large bounty on her head for the so-called crime of just surviving. An 8-year-old girl, a literal child who wanted nothing more than to just see her mother again. And they put her through a smear campaign so awful that this poor child actually considered ending it all. And because she was only a child, to be that young and go through all of this, on some level she must have started to even believe the Navy's lies about her. Not that she destroyed the island with her own hands, but to hear over and over and over again that the world would be better off without her. Knowing that her mother, Clover, Saul were all victims of Ohara, the survivor's guilt must have been eating her up that from her perspective she survived and they didn't. And back to current events, what does she do? She trades her life, herself, for her friends. On Ohara, she got away while her loved ones didn't. And on Water 7, she trades herself in so that her loved ones can get away. I need a moment. It's almost like she's trying to make up for being a survivor of Ohara, or just for being at all. And it falls to Frankie to be the first to try and knock some sense into her. It's never a crime just to exist. Robin's reaction to this is really interesting. Her eyes widen, almost in shock. How often has she been told the very opposite? That her existence alone is a sin. That her being is a crime. All through her childhood, so much so that she has internalized it and believes it herself. And then along comes the Dorito-shaped ray of light that is Frankie, to probably be the first person in her life to ever say this to her. I think Frankie also knew on some level that she needed to hear this. He's a very emotionally perceptive character, and I think given the similarity of their situations, he's able to get quite a good grasp on Robin here. It's also safe to say that by the end of this saga, Robin definitely gets a very good grasp on Frankie. Robin has been resolute up till now, but here we see her waver. Alas, scars as deep as these don't get healed instantly. And it doesn't help that Lucci and his stupid bird are here to reinforce their bias. So even when Sanji and this mysterious new Soga King character show up to try and get her back, she still pushes them away. She still believes that ultimately turning herself in is the best outcome for everyone. She still doesn't think that she deserves to live. But the weight of Frankie's words to her here is important. It is the first chink in her armor, the first key to a door that would be opened in one of One Piece's most iconic scenes to date. The Enies Lobby confrontation. A second chink in her armor comes ironically enough from Spandam, when he reveals that he doesn't intend to honor the deal that they made on account of some technical small print. That he would allow the Straw Hats to leave Water 7 safely, but now that they've come to Enies Lobby, the deal no longer holds. A very Arlong-esque bit of foul play from one Mr. Spandex here. Up until now, Robin has been living not for herself, but for other people. For her mother and for Saul. Her mother whose last act was to beg her to live. Saul, who promised her that the sea is vast and one day strong friends who would protect her would appear. And yet, in spite of their words, it takes a very long time for them to actually come true. Robin is friendless for the vast majority of her life. Crocodile, I think, on some level maybe had a bit of respect for her, but theirs was never a friendship so much as it was a business arrangement, and in the end he discarded her with ease once he found out that she was no longer useful to him. Robin, who has been used, rejected, and reviled all her life, has no reason to believe that the Straw Hats will come back for her, and yet they do. In spite of her efforts to push them away, in spite of her efforts to sacrifice herself for them, they put themselves in the firing line. They declare war on the world government itself for her. This is a declaration of friendship, of love, of family, the likes of which Robin has never experienced before. The promise Saul made to her all those years ago has finally come true. True friends whom will protect her have appeared. And crucially, Luffy doesn't simply beg Robin to live. He makes sure that the choice that she makes here isn't one that she makes for them, but a choice she makes for herself. If you want to say those things, say them, but say them by our side. Say you want to live. All these moments keep building, and bit by bit, Robin's armor begins to fall away, as the overwhelming reality hits her that all this time she has been lying to herself just as much as the Navy has been lying about her. She doesn't want to die. Her existence is not a crime. She has strong friends who will protect her to the end, and what she wants, what she really wants in this moment becomes undeniable to her. This is nothing short of beautiful. Robin, who had given up on herself, on her dream, on her life, is shown just how much she means to her friends, just how far they will go for her, and is finally able to accept, for the first time since she was 8 years old, that it's okay for her to live. She's allowed to. More than that, she wants to, and she is allowed to want to. To see the absolute darkness that Robin has gone through, contrasted now with the absolute light that is her friendship with the Straw Hats. Robin has been living a half-life up until now, but now, and for the entire rest of Enies Lobby, we see her fight to stay alive. We see her fight to live her life to the fullest with a passion and a fervour that we have never seen from her before. No longer desperate to sacrifice herself, but desperate to live. To the point that she grabs this platform with her teeth just to stop Spandam taking her away. All of this emotion, all of this pain, and it all boils down to those simple words. I want to live. This didn't just break me, it destroyed me. This, more than anything, more than Arlong Park, more than Alabasta, this moment is what truly elevated One Piece from just another anime that I was enjoying to an unrivaled all-time favourite. It is a standout moment in an arc that is already full to the brim of standout moments. And it doesn't hurt that the rest of Enies Lobby continues to relentlessly fire on all cylinders. This battle is incredible from start to finish, and in my opinion is still the greatest example of Oda really truly balancing the cast and giving every individual member their time to shine. And yet Frankie wasn't technically a crew member yet, but even so, he gets to show off his gadgetry while fighting Kumadori, and he gets to show his resolve when he burns the blueprints in front of Spandam. We also get the hilarious bit of his personality changing when he gets fueled by sources other than cola. I miss this gag. We need this again. Chopper, pushed further than ever before, unveils Monster Point, sacrificing his own mental faculty for the sheer chance that maybe his strength alone will save his friends. Sanji debuts Diable Jambe, reinstates his values, opens the doors of justice to disrupt the Navy ships, gives Usopp the encouragement that he needs, put a pin in that, we'll come back to that in a second. Usopp shoots the flag, he shoots the keys to Robin to let her escape, and he is the one left to give Luffy the words of encouragement that he needs to win his fight with Lucci. Luffy himself debuts second and third gear. Nami absolutely flexes in her fight against Khalifa. Zoro reveals his Asura 9-sword style, defeats a giraffe, and most importantly, tells Kaku he's fired. It is a truly magnificent feat of character balance, one that I feel no other arc has come close to. I think Wano tried its best with the raid on Onigashima, but in my opinion didn't stick the landing anywhere near as efficiently as this. Now, I know this video is already incredibly long, but it's time to talk about Sanji now. We have to talk about Sanji. You cannot stop me from talking about Sanji. It remains true that Robin and Usopp are the pillars of this saga, but Sanji does serve as a really good reflection of both of their characters and their struggles. The hindsight provided by Whole Cake Island really recontextualizes his role here. Sanji grew up so belittled that he viewed himself as worthless, and believed that his absence would only benefit those around him. While his dream to obtain the clear fruit is usually played for laughs, you don't have to dig too far to see there is a darker subtext behind that bit. When you think about why a child in this situation might have wished more than anything that he could disappear. And lo and behold, who should encounter Robin when she first tries to lead the crew? Why, look at that! It's Sanji, Chopper as well, and they are both characters who've had a similar struggle in finding where they belong, and accepting the kindness of others. Sanji in particular can quite keenly recognise in Robin those same traits that lie within himself. That same drive to self-sacrifice and put the lives of others before his own. It is somewhat ironic how perceptive Sanji is of this situation, considering he then goes on to do the exact same kind of thing in Whole Cake Island. Sanji too is incredibly perceptive of Usopp's emotional state, particularly during the big fight with Luffy. It's something that resonated with him so much that he actually resorted to physically attacking Luffy during their first argument. Because just as Usopp is struggling with his self-worth and perceived weakness among his peers, Sanji grew up in an environment that instilled those same insecurities in him. As the saga progresses, Sanji's connection to these two becomes even firmer. It is Sanji who very subtly conspires with Chopper to warn Usopp about the incoming Agua Laguna. It is Sanji and Usopp who follow Robin onto the sea train, again allowing him to empathize with both characters, such as him trying to break through to Robin when they confront her, and him being understanding when Usopp dons the Soga King mask. And while it's certainly not the same kind of situation, I think it does bear saying, boy doesn't Sanji know a thing or two about wearing a mask. Sanji again is later on the one who is able to break through to Usopp and give him those words of encouragement like I mentioned earlier, to tell him, I'm gonna go and do what you can't do, now you go and do what I can't do. Reassuring Usopp that he does have a place on the team. Sanji knew exactly what Usopp needed to hear here because he's been in that similar situation himself. This was already one of my favourite exchanges between these two characters, but after Whole Cake Island, it's only gotten even better in hindsight. And again with Sanji being a reflection of Robin, it cannot be a coincidence how similar Sol's departing words to Robin are to Reiju's departing words to Sanji. Like, these two scenes are just absolute mirrors of each other. It is uncanny. It's just so good. I don't know how much, like, specifics of Sanji's second backstory Oda had planned at this point in the story, but whether or not the Vince Smoke storyline was already planned here or came in later, Oda weaves Sanji's character in beautifully alongside Robin and Usopp throughout this portion of the story. And quite befitting of a saga so stuffed with story, we get a whole epilogue arc just to recover, recuperate, and resolve all the various plot threads that got spun during these events. Even with CP9 beaten, Spandam snapped, and the Marines outmaneuvered, we still have the big problem of Usopp, Frankie, Luffy, and the Merry. These dangling threads of conflict that sparked off a big part of all of this still remain untied. I remember thinking when I first watched this that even though Frankie has his endearing moments and is clearly being set up to be the new crew member, I can't help agreeing with Chopper here. I still don't entirely forgive you for what you did to Usopp. Frankie remains the primary reason that Usopp got beat up and the Straw Hats got robbed, and he already spent the money. If we're gonna have Frankie join the crew, Usopp rejoin, and set sail on a new ship, how can there possibly be a satisfying way to accomplish all that without leaving an uncomfortable scar of tension permanently lingering between these characters? You get Eiichiro goddamn Oda to write your story. That's how. I've had to take a break because my camera battery ran out because I was talking about One Piece too much, which is something I can see being a staple in my life going forward. The first thing to acknowledge is Oda did a lot by having Usopp and Frankie be thrown together during the Agua Laguna. It allows the two of them to bond and clear the air, which lays a great foundation for the reparations that need to happen later on. As previously mentioned, Usopp ends up being the only one left who can yell to Luffy and give him the words of encouragement he needs in his fight with Lucci. It's a small but significant building block in repairing the relationship between these two characters. And this only gets furthered by the Going Merry funeral scene. While we don't get a face-to-face apology from Luffy to Usopp, like Usopp gives to Luffy and the rest of the crew later on, this scene does still serve that same function. By Usopp still being disguised, he gets to see firsthand and without bias just how much the Merry did actually mean to Luffy too, by seeing and hearing his heartfelt apology to their fallen comrade. And as you might have guessed, if the duel broke me and I Wanna Live destroyed me, this scene, the Going Merry funeral scene, this goddamn obliterated me. And then there's the thing that most made me go, oh my god, of course, in terms of how you wrap all of this up, which is the revelation that what Frankie bought with the money he stole from the Straw Hats was a keel for a ship made out of the incredibly rare Adamwood. Not only that, but as recompense for what he did to Usopp, him resolving to use said keel in order to build the Straw Hats their new ship from scratch. It's just such a wonderful and clean way to heal that wound. Considering the Straw Hats were going to use that money to buy a new ship anyway, this lets Frankie atone and gives the Straw Hats a new ship that contains a lot more emotional weight and meaning than if they just picked one out of one of Iceberg's catalogues. Although Frankie is at first stubborn about wanting to stay, we are given a compelling reason for him to leave and join the Straw Hats. With his newly issued bounty, his presence would put the island and the Frankie family in danger. And we are also presented with an incredibly bizarre and funny sequence vis-a-vis the way that everyone decides to try and convince Frankie to leave. Along with Iceberg's reminder that building the ship alone would only be fulfilling half of Frankie's dream. Without actually sailing around the world on it himself, that dream will always remain not quite finished. Again, it's that perfect blend of silliness and sincerity that One Piece excels at. So with Frankie on board and the ship sailing, there is just one more thing that we need to resolve. Usopp rejoining the crew. It's clear that no one actually wants to say goodbye to him, even Frankie, who's been a crew member for like 5 seconds. But Zoro is right about the way they need to handle it. Given the seriousness of the fallout, it can't just be a hand-wavy welcome back. Something I didn't catch when I first watched this is that Zoro says if the first words we hear out of that man's mouth aren't a sincere apology, then we can't welcome him back. And while the first words Usopp says are his usual kind of spiel, Zoro doesn't say, well that's it, let's leave him. Zoro claims he can't hear anything. Thus, Usopp gives his sincere apology and is welcomed back to the crew with open arms in a beautiful resolution. You did it, Oda, you crazy bastard, you did it. All of these intense character conflicts have now been resolved in a way that feels both satisfying and earned. This is how Water 7 broke my heart. And this is how Water 7 healed it. All of this is why Water 7 remains my favourite saga from this incredible series, and why I wanted to make this video as something of a love letter to just how much of an impact this saga had on me. And with that, thanks for watching. Oh my god, I knew this was going to be a long video, but yikes. This is going to be a beast to edit. So let me know what your favourite part of Water 7 is, or alternatively, let me know what your favourite One Piece saga is and why. Do remember to like and subscribe if you have not already. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and as always, I will see you in my next one.